We don't have a lot of people here live. I'll just run through a quick overview of the Index Co-op. Would love to take questions throughout at any time. If you want to, I'll put the chat, open the lectures chat, and we can feel free to pop in there with any questions or comments as I go. But just want to give a high level over the Index Co-op, answer any questions. I also I need to grab this and link it here really quick. I think you might have been provided already with some version of Index Co-op contract addresses that are important. But I made another one that might be helpful. Sorry, I thought I had this up. Anyone with this link? Okay, so I'm putting this in the lectures chat for now. Actually, yeah, I'll put it there for now. I might need to move it too, but been meaning to get that to you guys. So that just includes some of the addresses for quick lookup of our products, liquidity pools, and the main protocol level contracts we use. Awesome. Let me share my screen here. Cool. All right, the Index Co-op. Our mission is to make, I guess I can't remember the exact phrase, but we have an actual mission. It's to make crypto investing simple, accessible, and easy, something like that. But we do that by building crypto index products or exchange traded funds, ETFs, if you will. You see here, we actually just reached 500 million in AUM for the first time. Good milestone. And that's exciting. So I think you guys, I mean, you've talked about IndexCoop enough. You're probably familiar with the idea of an index product. It's essentially you're holding one asset but getting price exposure to a basket of assets in combination according to specific weights. So for DPI's example, I think it's let's see here really quick. Looks like it's 17 tokens in DPI, so they all have specific allocation weight. But essentially, index products allow you to still invest in a specific sector or strategy without having to pick a winner or a couple winners. You can be like more broad as long as you're bullish on that individual sector. If you want to ride cycles between ETH and DeFi, you can trade between DPI and ETH without having to get into only one or two tokens. So that's the general gist of an index product. We have 4 index products that we've launched so far. We have DeFi Pulse, so that's tracking DeFi. We have the Metaverse Index. So this is across the whole metaverse, NFTs, gaming, virtual worlds, etc. This product, let's see if in this chart you can guess where Facebook changed their name to Meta. This really has exploded in the last week because of this narrative of the metaverse kind of more broadly. Again, because people know it's coming. They believe it's something that's going to be big. These are the market leaders right now in this space in crypto. So if you get the index, you can kind of ride this sector together, all these tokens together. We have BED, which is simply a third Bitcoin, a third Ethereum, and a third DeFi or DPI. So our own index is also in this index. And this is just kind of apply it, these are the biggest themes in crypto. So you're just getting broad exposure to crypto as it gains adoption. And the data index is our newest product, Data Economy Index. You're trying to get access to protocols that have like database services. If you think about DeFi trying to replace traditional finance, the Data Economy Index is like protocols and projects that are trying to interrupt like the big tech data monopolies. So things like GRT, the Graph, Link, BAT, Filecoin, etc. Right now, these are just Ethereum-based tokens. Filecoin uses Ren. We're in partnership with Ren, who is bridging Filecoin into the Ethereum ecosystem. There's a lot of database protocols that are outside of Ethereum, so this is hopefully a strategy they're looking to use for other tokens as well. All right, and then I just wanted to introduce so we have two leverage indices, Ethereum and BTC 2x flexible leverage. Essentially, this allows you to get 2x leverage on either Ethereum or Bitcoin by just holding one asset. Essentially what is happening is you have Ethereum, you're using USDC to borrow against that Ethereum and then buying more Ethereum. So you essentially have 2x leverage, 2x price exposure. And the contracts in the background, they're doing all the work to automate your rebalancing so that it's staying safe from a liquidation perspective, but also maintaining that close to 2x. So again, there's a target leverage of 2x. It fluctuates around 2x as the price moves and it's rebalancing. So these are traded products. We see a lot of trade volume on these. That's how they're intended to be used for periods where you're really bullish on ETH. You can get a 2x leverage position really easily. You don't have to manage your own loans or anything, or your own debt. All right, any questions? I just wanted to give that clear overview. I wanted to make sure there's any questions broadly about our products, what we're trying to do at the moment.
Yeah, I actually have a question. And so this is regarding the DPI token. So when you got the DPI token, what do you do with the DPI token? What can it be used for?
Yeah, so DPI right now, you can use it. Well, actually, they just paused it, but you can use it in Aave. There's a fuse pool. We're working with, we're always working with or working towards making DPI an asset that you can use in money markets to borrow against or use as collateral. But so those are kind of the opportunities at the moment. Is that kind of what you're asking?
Got that. Okay, that's clear. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the I guess one of the value props that we're building towards, right, with DeFi in general, like all these composable pieces where you can actually hold an index, but also use it as collateral for borrowing stables or something like that, where in traditional finance, index products are typically not used like that. But not only do you get exposure through indexes, you can potentially use them as money Legos throughout DeFi. It's a great question. Any other questions? If not, I want to jump into some of our data or KPIs and stuff that we look at.
So JD, how do we derive the weights that are associated in the DeFi Pulse Index and the other indexes of the underlying assets?
Sorry, say that one more time. How do we derive the what?
How do we derive or come on the weights that are associated in the underlying assets for a token?
Okay, the weights here.
Yeah.
So
the allocation.
So the DeFi Pulse is the official methodologist of this product, and we have a methodology for all our products. So there's actually a defined methodology that they go by to determine the weights. So you can see like some calculate, I think this is probably the best place. This link's probably the best place to go, the official methodology. So, see if I can give you a quick answer. So there's some specific characteristics. It must have launched at least 880 days, so it must be 6 months old. Must be widely considered to be building a useful product. So they have some like base considerations, but then they take circulating supply. So it's essentially market cap weighted to a degree, and I think they have some caps, like a 25% allocation cap. So they're largely taking like the top market weight, the largest market cap products in DeFi. They do have an allocation cap, and then they're just weighting them according to their market cap. Does that make sense? So there is a defined methodology, and then they rebalance. DPI, for example, is rebalanced monthly. So every month they relook at, they relook at the methodology. They look at the tokens and they reassess the weights, and then they rebalance the index to get back to those weights.
Got it.
Good question. Because methodologies can be different, right? You don't always have to have a market cap weighted methodology. Like we have Token Terminal. They're in the process. It's in the proposal process of launching an index, and their weights are going to be based on price to sales ratios. So that'll be different than a market cap weighted index.
Yeah. That'll be very interesting, right? Because you have a lot of asset under management. So if you increase the weights, so the price of the underlying token also will like increase, right? So yeah, that is pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Or are you big enough to influence that, or?
There are, I think with MVI, there's a lot of like MVI, because it grew, its AUM grew so much in the last week and a half. The rebalancing is actually going to take a while, be more challenging because we could really easily, with the amount we have to rebalance on some of the tokens, you could really affect the price. But we don't want to incur price impact on the rebalance, because that's just decaying the net asset value of the index, and we don't want to move the market of the token either. So we have to like really spread those trades out. We try to, so it is a challenge. It definitely is a challenge. It's something we have to balance, because like technically index products, they're going to have some cap to a degree. It's not like a hard cap, but it's like you can really only grow so much AUM under one product given its underlying token liquidity, right? Like I guess the technical cap is if Uni's 25% of this product, this product DPI could only grow 4x the market cap of Uni. Now that's a bad example because that's Uni's market cap's huge, so we'd never probably get there. But you see, like you are capped by the underlying liquidities, the underlying market cap, and the underlying liquidity. Because if there's not liquidity for you to rebalance effectively, you shouldn't be that big.
Got it.
Great questions. So we have some KPIs. We're kind of constantly, I wanted to highlight a couple of them. So things that we really care about is like we feel like we're building products. We're trying to build useful products for users. Something that a user, as they enter DeFi, as they enter crypto, they're like, I want to hold this asset because it helps me invest in crypto without being worried about it, or it meets my investing goals in a really easy and simple way. So we care about address exposure, how many addresses we're interacting with. And this is broken down in other dashboards where we look at our users' retention by cohort. We look at, how many are repeat buying, how many are under how many deep, like by exposure, do they have less than 10 DPI, more than 10, more than 50, etc. And what do those breakdowns look like? So we try to and we continue to try to evolve and be more in depth about how we look at our users. Unit supply is just a general measure of demand for our products. Like the more unit supply goes up, obviously, the more demand there is for our products. But specifically, what we care about is unincentivized unit supply. So what I mean by that is you see a lot in DeFi, right, where there's a liquidity mining program. So a lot of people are farming this token by they buy the token, they pair it with ETH, they put it in a liquidity pool, and they get rewards for providing liquidity for this token. That's one form of farming. We've done liquidity mining programs in the past. We're trying to avoid them wherever we can, just because maybe for obvious reasons, but they can potentially still be necessary. But we don't historically any holding that we've incentivized via like liquidity mining, we track that under incentivized unit supply, meaning we're assuming that you're only holding the product because you're getting paid to do so. And if the reason of that is to like grow liquidity, whatever, that's okay. But we have to be aware that our unit supply may not be growing because people want to hold our products, but because they're getting paid to do so. Unincentivized unit supply is any unit supply that is not being used to farm any rewards. So since we've ended our DPI liquidity mining and MVI liquidity mining, there are some onsen rewards via Sushi for our data product right now, but very, very little. So this like breakdown here on the right, this is our incentivized versus unincentivized supply. So right after launch, we launched liquidity mining for DPI, and that was like, that's what got everybody's attention. But slowly since then, we've gone from 88% incentivized supply to basically none, 100% unincentivized. So right now, nobody's getting paid to hold our products in that regard, which is important because we can't tell if we have product market fit with a product if they're just being incentivized. We have to be able to, we can tell if we have product market fit if our unit supply and address exposure keeps going up even without incentives. One other kind of KPI set that we built out more recently, and we really look closely at is what we call NSF, or it's actually net capital flow, net dollar flow. So what that means is unit supply isn't always like, it's a great directional metric, but it's not great because one unit in August could cost $200, and one unit in October or November could cost $400. So one unit of extra supply, it's harder to get one extra unit supply in October. So this essentially tracks growth via dollar flows in, net dollar flows in. So like, let's look at these cycles that happen. Let's look at this one by month. So in May 2021, $51 million came in. A net dollar flow came into DPI. So if we look at dollars buying DPI versus our unit split, the unit supply that dropped and dollars that went out of the DPI, we were at net 51 million, 49 million for E2X, 11 million for BTC2X. So this was a great month. This was like the height, and then we saw a big drop across all of crypto. But then back in September, we had another great month where we onboarded about 39 million into DPI, another 16 million E2X. And then the last 2 months, I think we're seeing this in the cycle right now with the way ETH is moving. A little bit more has flown out of DPI. 10 million went out of DPI in October. 4 million went out of DPI in November. So this is really maybe even the most important gauge of like, what is money flowing into our products? Is it flowing out of our products? Etc. This was built, Anthony, who's one of the core contributors, he's awesome at the co-op. He built this dashboard. So wanted to pause there. I know we have about 6 minutes left. Just wanted to introduce you to some of the main KPIs, the things we consider. Is there any questions on that? Any questions around those? So I can also, just one other thing I can go into that. So if no questions there, just wanted to highlight kind of the protocol questions that we put forward to work on. One of them being the DPI liquidity migration. let's look at these two. This is in uniswap.info. In August, we used the V3 staking contract, which is now getting some publicity for what's happening with Ribbon. Probably not going to use it again in the near term until some of that gets resolved. But anyways, let me see. Okay, so this is V2. So we had a liquidity pool on Uniswap V2, and up in May, it got up to $98 million USD worth of DPI and ETH in liquidity in this pool. But Uniswap V3 launched, we were really keen to move our liquidity onto concentrated liquidity pools to get more efficient liquidity, because this was all being incentivized, and we couldn't do that. So we dropped our incentives. This dropped a lot of the liquidity. Then you see in mid-August here, we were still at 50 million in liquidity, and then we had this huge drop-off. But this was intentional on V2. If you look at the V3 pool, come on. We see in mid-August, we were in the low 2 millions, mid 2 millions, and then we jump up to 20 million in liquidity. So right now we're about 17 million. The problem is, if you look at the actual liquidity around the current price, some of that liquidity got put in at the time and set these ranges and hasn't really been updated. So this is a separate problem we're working on. But the big question we're interested in is that we haven't had time, and I think would be a good question for y'all to answer, is this migration. Questions like, who actually migrated liquidity? Like, what liquidity providers were on V2 and moved their liquidity to V3? Did they move all of it? Did they just move some of it? Or were these new? Did people just drop out of V2? And how many new liquidity providers came on board during this process once we started incentivizing on V3? Were we just attracting new liquidity providers? We're interested in just understanding better how that incentivization period actually affected people's decisions to provide liquidity on V2 or V3. It's pretty open-ended by nature. I know I introduced you to the V3 mint and burn events and V2 mint and burn events during our last exercise. Obviously, we'll go deeper in that, but just want to introduce again that problem. And I'm sure we'll talk about it more, but that's kind of one of the overarching problems and questions I think would be really valuable to have analyzed as part of this program. Any questions on that? We only have a couple minutes left. Any questions on that, or just index co-op in general?
Does index co-op care if it's on V2 or V3 for liquidity? Yes,
we do. This is really interesting stuff. Actually, the analytics working group is doing a ton of work here. So sneak peek for everybody here. I mean, we're working on a broad liquidity strategy where we focus on concentrated liquidity pools. We want to be in V3 pools. We're actually working on strategies to build protocol-owned liquidity. So we'll be able to manage more of the liquidity in V3 right around the price. We have what's called exchange issuance, which allows people to trade ETH and then underlying like mint or redeem our index products. And on larger trade sizes, that's potentially a good tool, but up to like 20, 25 ETH, you're still going to be using a DEX. So if we're on V3 and we actually can manage our liquidity around the price, then we have much lower liquidity requirements targets. Like if you're talking about AUM. So if we say we can manage our liquidity around the price at about plus or minus 50%, it's something like a 4x increase in capital efficiency, meaning instead of having to put 15 million or 16 million in a V2 pool, we only need 4 million in a V3 pool. And by putting more liquidity around the price and attracting more volume to our concentrated liquidity pools, it increases the fees and attracts more LPs there. So yes, we are kind of going down a strategy where we want pools to be on concentrated liquidity. We're going to have more protocol controlled liquidity there. And yeah, should be exciting, I think. Hopefully that wasn't too long of an answer.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting because I feel like that's something I haven't heard that much about, and it's like confusing for users. It's just like, where do these protocols actually want their token? You know, it's not always clear.
JD, so do you use any third-party data, for example, including any marketing data or your clickstream data? So do you marry that data with the analytics data, or do you think that only the blockchain data is enough for this?
We use so we do have marketing data. We have a few streams. I mean, our growth team looks at like a lot of data on Twitter, like impressions, etc. So we have growth data that way. We have a couple. We have other channels like our Medium, our what's it called? Substack, yeah. Where we pull in some marketing data that way, and I actually don't contribute directly to that as much. We have another core contributor that focuses more on growth. I haven't got a sync for a few weeks on that, but they are working on like a broader dashboard that's like not on-chain data. It's more marketing focused. So there is data that we're definitely using and looking at that's not just directly on-chain.
So almost everything that you do is organic. So you don't do paid marketing, or
No. Well, we have our form of paid marketing, if you've heard of impression mining. So I don't know if you've heard of layer 3 protocol, but impression mining is this, essentially we pay for impressions on Twitter. It's like a rewards via index. So if you're tweeting a bunch and getting impressions around index co-op topics, you can submit those and get paid an index. It's an idea that's been adopted by layer 3. So they're doing it more broadly for other protocols, but it started with the growth team at IndexCoop.
Yeah, it seems really interesting. Just text you if I have further questions.
Awesome.
I have a last question. How is IndexCoop thinking about L2s?
It's a good question.
Or if consideration is on L2s yet.
Oh yeah, we definitely do. I mean, we're running some experiments on Polygon, right? We have QuickSwap incentivizing a DPI pool. We have a MVI pool. It's incentivized by Sushi there. We have about 300 Sushi or MVI holders on Polygon and 600 DPI holders. So I think right now we're kind of in experimentation mode. We have a Polygon 10 index in the pipeline with the Polygon Foundation. So we're very interested in launching like native indexes. So at this point, it's more just like we're experimenting. We're seeing we want to move to layer 2 as fast as we can. But it's for our products right now that are kind of cemented on layer 1 with their mint and redeem functions and whatnot. Again, this goes to our broad liquidity strategy. I think you'd be very interested in it, Andrew. But like we're trying to build liquidity on layer 2 and layer 1 and with our exchange issuance such that they all kind of work harmoniously to give any user an access at like a target access cost percentage. So like if you include gas plus price impact, we want to say we can do any buy size reasonable, like we're talking 100 ETH or less, at like a 1.5% or less total access cost. By that meaning like if the gas cost is too much for your buy on L1, we have an L2 pool that can facilitate it. If it's too much, if the price is too much, the price impact is too much on L1, our exchange issuance works well enough that you can do it there. So we're definitely thinking about it. Also, one of the things about a DAO that can be very difficult is coming up with like really high level strategic direction. So like the way we come about our L2 strategy is like really roundabout, and it's just in the process of lots of conversations. So we don't really have a solidified body that's just gonna like work on that and say, hey, this is our L2 strategy. But We're definitely running experiments, thinking a lot about it, because these products, in a large sense, like as crypto adoption happens, like they got to be on in L2s so that they're cheap enough for people to interact with.
Yeah, sounds super interesting. Thanks.
Mhm. Yeah. Awesome. Well, appreciate y'all. I think we can call it there, and I'm available for questions anytime, and we'll pick it up another time. Thanks, Andrew, for recording.
Yeah, thanks, JD.
Thank you,
Catch y'all later.
JD.